Imagine waking up one morning with a dream so powerful that it refuses to leave your mind. A dream that whispers to you when you wake up, follows you through the day, and echoes in your thoughts before you fall asleep. You imagine building something meaningful, a company, a vision, a life where you are in control. At the beginning, everything feels exciting. Ideas flow easily. Motivation is everywhere. You believe success is simply a matter of working hard enough. But then reality arrives, and reality is rarely as simple as motivation videos make it seem. Because the truth about success, especially in business and leadership, is something most people never talk about. Success is not built during the easy days. It is built during the hardest moments of your life. Moments when you feel uncertain. Moments when you feel alone. Moments when quitting feels like the most logical option. This is where real entrepreneurs are born. Not in comfortable offices, not during motivational speeches, but in the quiet, painful moments when everything seems to be falling apart. You see, starting something meaningful is exciting, but leading something through chaos is a completely different story. Many people want to start. Very few are prepared to endure. And that is exactly what this audiobook is about. Not the glamorous version of success, but the real story behind it. The difficult decisions, the sleepless nights, the constant pressure of responsibility, and the mental strength required to continue when everything inside you is asking you to stop. Because building something great is not just about intelligence, it is about resilience. It is about your ability to continue moving forward even when you have no guarantee that things will work out. Think about this for a moment. Every successful founder you admire, every powerful company you see today, every inspiring success story you read about, all of them went through moments that looked like complete failure. Moments where the future was unclear. Moments where the numbers didn't make sense. Moments where people doubted them. And yet, they continued. Not because they were fearless, but because they understood something important. Success does not belong to the most talented people. Success belongs to the people who refuse to quit during the hardest moments. And that brings us to the first truth about building anything meaningful. The hardest part of success is not starting, it is continuing when everything becomes difficult. Let's explore what that really means. The emotional reality of leadership. Most people imagine leadership as power, authority, respect, influence. But in reality, leadership often feels like the exact opposite. It feels like pressure, responsibility, isolation. Because when you become the leader of something, whether it's a business, a team, or even your own life, you become the person who must make the difficult decisions. And difficult decisions rarely come with clear answers. Imagine this situation. Your company is struggling financially. Revenue is dropping. Expenses are rising. Your employees depend on their salaries, and the future of the company depends on a decision you must make. Do you reduce costs? Do you let people go? Do you risk everything on a new strategy? Or do you slowly watch the company collapse? This is the kind of pressure leaders face regularly, not once, not twice, but constantly. And here's the difficult truth most people don't realize. Leadership can be lonely. Because the higher you go, the fewer people truly understand the pressure you carry. You cannot share every fear with your employees. You cannot show uncertainty during critical moments. Sometimes you must appear confident even when you are deeply unsure. That emotional weight is something every true leader must learn to carry. And those who cannot carry it often walk away. But those who learn to manage it become stronger. They develop emotional resilience. They learn how to think clearly in chaos, and eventually they develop the mental strength that separates ordinary people from extraordinary leaders.
Part 3. There is a moment in every ambitious journey when excitement disappears. At the beginning, everything feels inspiring. The idea is new, the dream is powerful, your motivation is high. You imagine the future version of your life: freedom, success, recognition, financial security. But eventually, the excitement fades, and what replaces it is reality. Reality is not motivational. Reality is difficult. Reality tests whether your dream is truly strong enough to survive. Because the truth is this: most people do not fail because their idea is bad. Most people fail because the journey becomes emotionally exhausting. Let's imagine a simple scenario. You decide to start something new. Maybe it's a business. Maybe it's a personal project. Maybe it's a goal to change your life. At first, everything moves quickly. You plan, you research, you take action. The progress feels real. But after some time, the obstacles begin to appear. Unexpected problems, financial pressure, mistakes you didn't anticipate, criticism from people who never believed in your vision. And suddenly, what once felt exciting begins to feel heavy, very heavy. You start questioning yourself. Maybe this idea isn't good enough. Maybe I'm not experienced enough. Maybe this was a mistake. And this moment right here is where most journeys end. Not because success is impossible, but because the emotional cost becomes too high. You see, the hardest part of building anything meaningful is not the work itself. The hardest part is managing the psychological pressure that comes with it. Pressure from uncertainty, pressure from responsibility, pressure from time passing while results are still unclear. And this pressure creates doubt. Doubt is dangerous, not because doubt means failure, but because doubt slowly destroys confidence. When confidence disappears, action slows down. When action slows down, progress disappears. And without progress, motivation collapses. This is the silent cycle that stops most people long before success has a chance to appear. But there is something very important you must understand. Every successful person you admire has experienced this exact moment. Every founder, every leader, every entrepreneur, they all face the same psychological battle. The difference is not talent. The difference is endurance. Successful people are not always smarter. They are simply better at continuing when things become uncomfortable. Think about the most powerful companies in the world. At some point in their history, many of them were extremely close to failure. Companies that today generate billions of dollars were once just fragile ideas struggling to survive. There were moments when investors doubted them, moments when customers ignored them, moments when failure seemed inevitable. But someone inside those companies decided not to quit. Someone decided to continue even when success was invisible, and that decision changed everything. Because success rarely happens quickly. Success happens slowly, almost invisibly. It grows quietly, while most people have already given up. This is why patience is one of the most powerful skills in the world of achievement. Patience is not passive. Patience is active endurance. It is the ability to continue working without immediate reward. It is the discipline to keep building when results are delayed. And in a world obsessed with fast success, this skill has become extremely rare. Most people want immediate validation, immediate results, immediate proof that their effort is working. But real success does not operate on that timeline. Real success takes time, sometimes a lot of time, years of consistent effort, years of learning through mistakes, years of solving problems that no one prepared you for. And this is exactly why most people never reach the level of success they dream about. They stop too early. Not because success was impossible, but because they expected it to arrive faster. Now, think about your own life for a moment. How many goals have you started with excitement, only to abandon them when progress slowed down? How many times did doubt convince you that something wasn't worth continuing? This happens to almost everyone. But once you understand this pattern, something powerful happens. You stop interpreting difficulty as failure. You start seeing difficulty as part of the process. Instead of asking, "Why is this so hard?" you begin asking, "How can I become stronger?" And this shift in thinking changes everything. Because the moment you stop expecting the journey to be easy, you become mentally prepared for the challenges ahead. You stop being surprised by obstacles. You stop being discouraged by setbacks. And most importantly, you stop quitting when things become uncomfortable. This is the mindset that builds real success. Not blind optimism, not unrealistic expectations, but calm, disciplined persistence. The understanding that progress will not always be visible. The belief that effort today will eventually produce results tomorrow. And the courage to continue even when the path forward feels uncertain. Because in the world of ambition, the winners are rarely the fastest. The winners are the ones who simply refuse to stop moving forward. And once you understand this principle, you are ready to explore the next truth about building something meaningful. A truth that many people discover only after experiencing serious challenges. The truth that leadership is not about control. It is about responsibility, and responsibility can change your entire life.
At some point in every ambitious journey, a quiet realization begins to grow inside you. Success is not only about ideas, it is not only about strategy, and it is certainly not only about motivation. Success is about responsibility, real responsibility. The kind of responsibility that changes the way you think, the way you make decisions, and the way you see the world around you. When you first start chasing a goal, everything feels personal. You're focused on your own dreams, your own ambitions, your own future. But the moment your actions begin to affect other people, everything becomes more serious. If you build a company, people depend on you. If you lead a team, their stability depends on your decisions. If you create opportunities, others build their lives around them. Suddenly, your choices carry weight, and that weight is something most people underestimate. Many people believe leadership is about power, but the truth is that leadership is about accountability. It is about becoming the person who must stand at the center of uncertainty and still move forward. Imagine a leader during a difficult moment. Revenue is declining, the market is shifting, competitors are becoming stronger, employees are worried, and everyone is looking toward one person for direction, the leader. Now here's the interesting part. The leader does not always have perfect information. The leader does not always know the exact solution, but the leader must still make decisions. This is one of the most uncomfortable realities of leadership. You often have to act without certainty. You have to choose a direction even when the future is unclear. You have to make decisions knowing that some of them may turn out to be wrong. And yet, avoiding decisions can be even more dangerous because inaction slowly destroys momentum, and momentum is the lifeblood of progress. Think about the most difficult decisions you've ever faced. Maybe it was choosing a career path. Maybe it was ending a relationship. Maybe it was taking a risk that felt frightening at the time. Those moments felt uncomfortable because the outcome was uncertain. But those moments were also defining moments. They shaped who you became. Leadership is simply a constant version of those moments. You're always standing at crossroads, always choosing between options that carry risk, always navigating situations where no answer feels completely safe. And this is why emotional strength becomes one of the most valuable qualities a leader can develop. Because when pressure increases, people react differently. Some panic, some freeze, some avoid responsibility. But great leaders develop the ability to remain calm inside chaos, not because they are immune to fear, but because they understand something powerful.
Fear is information. It is a signal that something important is happening. Instead of running away from fear, they analyze it. They ask themselves questions. What exactly am I afraid of? Is the risk real or is it imagined? What is the worst possible outcome? And if that outcome happened, could I recover? Often, the answers reveal something surprising. The risk feels much larger in our imagination than it actually is in reality. And once you see the situation clearly, action becomes easier. Another powerful lesson experienced leaders eventually learn is this: perfection is the enemy of progress. Many people delay action because they want everything to be perfect before they move forward. Perfect timing, perfect strategy, perfect conditions. But the world rarely offers perfect conditions. Opportunities appear messy. Solutions are discovered through experimentation. Progress is built through trial and error. The most successful leaders are not the ones who make perfect decisions. They are the ones who make decisions quickly, learn from the results, and adjust. Speed of learning often matters more than accuracy, because every action generates feedback, and feedback is information. The faster you collect information, the faster you improve. Think about how children learn to walk. They fall, they try again, they fall again. But they do not interpret falling as failure. They interpret falling as part of the process. Adults often forget this lesson. We become afraid of mistakes, afraid of embarrassment, afraid of criticism, and this fear slows down our progress. But the reality is that mistakes are not the opposite of success. Mistakes are the pathway to success. Every failed attempt teaches something valuable. Every wrong decision reveals information that helps you make a better decision next time. In fact, some of the most important breakthroughs in history happened because someone made a mistake and paid attention to the lesson hidden inside it. Innovation is often born from experimentation. Experimentation requires courage, and courage grows when you accept that failure is not fatal. Failure is feedback. Another truth about leadership that surprises many people is how important communication becomes. When you are responsible for others, your words carry enormous influence. A leader's voice can create clarity or confusion, confidence or fear, momentum or hesitation. This is why great leaders learn how to communicate vision. They do not simply explain what needs to be done, they explain why it matters. They help people see the bigger picture. When people understand the purpose behind their work, motivation becomes stronger, energy becomes higher, commitment becomes deeper. Because human beings are not only motivated by money or instructions, they are motivated by meaning. People want to feel that their efforts contribute to something valuable, something meaningful, something larger than themselves. When leaders create that sense of purpose, teams become powerful. But when purpose disappears, energy disappears with it. And this is where leadership becomes both an art and a responsibility. Because your ability to guide others depends not only on intelligence, but on emotional awareness. You must understand how people think, how they react under pressure, how they interpret uncertainty, and how your behavior influences their confidence. This awareness transforms the way you lead. Instead of controlling people, you empower them. Instead of demanding perfection, you encourage progress. Instead of creating fear, you create trust. Trust becomes the foundation of strong teams. Without trust, communication breaks down. Without trust, collaboration becomes difficult. Without trust, people protect themselves instead of supporting the mission. But when trust exists, something powerful happens. People become willing to take risks. They share ideas openly. They support each other during difficult moments. And together, they build momentum that would be impossible alone. Leadership is not about standing above others. It is about standing with them, facing challenges together, solving problems together, and moving forward together. This perspective transforms leadership from a burden into a meaningful journey. because while the responsibility can be heavy, the impact can also be extraordinary. You are not only building a company, you are shaping an environment where people grow. You are creating opportunities that did not exist before. You are proving that persistence, courage, and vision can transform ideas into reality. And once you begin to understand this deeper purpose, the challenges start to feel different. They no longer feel like obstacles. They begin to feel like steps on the path towards something meaningful. And that path leads us to another important truth, one that many people discover only after experiencing real setbacks. The truth that failure is not something to avoid, it is something to understand, because failure often contains the most valuable lessons success can offer.
There is a moment in every meaningful journey when something goes wrong. Not a small inconvenience, not a minor obstacle, but a real setback. The kind of setback that forces you to stop and question everything. Maybe a business idea collapses. Maybe an important deal falls apart. Maybe months or years of work suddenly seem wasted. These moments feel painful, they feel frustrating, and sometimes they feel deeply unfair. But hidden inside these moments is one of the most powerful teachers in life: failure. Most people fear failure because they misunderstand it. They think failure is proof that they are not good enough, proof that their idea was wrong, proof that success was never meant for them. But in reality, failure is simply information. It is reality giving you feedback. It is life revealing something that you did not understand before. And once you learn how to interpret that feedback correctly, failure stops being something destructive. It becomes something incredibly valuable. Let's imagine an entrepreneur launching a new product. They invest time, money, and energy. They believe the product will change everything. But when it finally reaches the market, something unexpected happens. Customers are not interested. Sales are weak. The product fails. Now, two different reactions are possible. The first reaction is emotional. The entrepreneur feels embarrassed. They feel discouraged. They conclude that they are not capable of success. And slowly they abandon the journey. But the second reaction is analytical. Instead of asking, "Why did I fail?" they ask a different question. What can this failure teach me? Maybe the market need was misunderstood. Maybe the timing was wrong. Maybe the messaging was unclear. Maybe the execution was incomplete. These insights are incredibly valuable because they transform failure into education. Every mistake becomes a lesson. Every lesson improves the next attempt. And over time, these lessons compound. Think about some of the most successful innovators in history. Many of them experienced repeated failures before achieving their breakthroughs. Their early experiments did not work. Their ideas were rejected. Their prototypes were flawed. But instead of interpreting these failures as the end of the journey, they treated them as steps toward understanding. They refined their thinking. They improved their approach. And eventually they discovered solutions that others had not yet seen. This mindset is one of the most powerful mental advantages you can develop, the ability to detach your identity from your results. Your failure does not define you, it informs you. This difference may seem small, but it changes everything. When failure becomes information, fear begins to disappear. You are no longer afraid to experiment. You are no longer afraid to try new ideas. You become comfortable exploring possibilities, and exploration is the birthplace of innovation. But there is another important lesson hidden inside failure: resilience. Resilience is not something you are born with. It is something you build, and it is built through experience. Every challenge you overcome strengthens your ability to face the next challenge. Every setback you survive increases your confidence. You begin to realize something powerful. You are stronger than you once believed. Think about your own life for a moment. There were probably times when something difficult happened, something that felt overwhelming at the time, but you survived it. You adapted, you moved forward, and eventually that experience became part of your strength. This is how resilience works. It transforms struggle into capability.
The more challenges you face and overcome, the more mentally durable you become. And mental durability is one of the most valuable assets in any ambitious pursuit. Because success rarely happens without difficulty. Every meaningful achievement requires navigating uncertainty, solving problems, adapting to unexpected changes. People who expect an easy path often quit early, but people who expect challenges prepare themselves differently. They develop patience, they develop emotional control, they develop strategic thinking. Instead of reacting impulsively to problems, they analyze them. Instead of feeling defeated by setbacks, they become curious. They ask questions. What went wrong? What could be improved? What is the lesson hidden inside this experience? This curiosity turns obstacles into opportunities for growth. But resilience also requires something else: perspective. When you're inside a difficult moment, it's easy to believe that everything is falling apart. Our minds tend to exaggerate negative situations. We imagine the worst possible outcomes. We assume that temporary problems will become permanent failures. But when you step back and observe the situation with perspective, the reality often looks different. Many problems are temporary. Many mistakes are reversible. Many setbacks are simply part of the natural learning process. This broader perspective allows you to stay calm during challenging moments, and calm thinking leads to better decisions. Panic creates poor decisions. Fear narrows your thinking, but calm awareness expands your thinking. It allows you to see solutions that panic would hide. One of the most powerful habits successful people develop is reflection. They regularly step back from the chaos of daily activity and ask themselves important questions. What is working? What is not working? What needs to change? Reflection transforms experience into wisdom. Without reflection, people repeat the same mistakes again and again. But with reflection, every experience becomes a lesson, and those lessons accumulate over time. Eventually, something remarkable happens. The challenges that once felt overwhelming begin to feel manageable. Problems that once seemed impossible begin to look solvable. You develop confidence not because life becomes easier, but because you become stronger. This is the hidden advantage of experience. Experience teaches you that difficulty is temporary. Experience teaches you that solutions exist. Experience teaches you that persistence often reveals opportunities invisible at first glance. And this understanding builds a quiet kind of confidence, not loud arrogance, but calm belief in your ability to navigate uncertainty. This confidence allows you to take risks that others avoid. It allows you to remain steady while others panic. It allows you to continue building while others quit. And that persistence creates a powerful advantage over time. Because success is not always about being the most talented person in the room. Often, success belongs to the person who simply stayed in the game longer, the person who kept learning, kept adjusting, kept improving, while others walked away. This principle applies not only to business, but to every area of life: personal growth, financial independence, creative mastery. All of these journeys follow the same pattern: effort, challenge, learning, adjustment, progress, repeated over time. The people who accept this pattern develop extraordinary resilience. They stop chasing shortcuts. They stop searching for magical solutions. Instead, they focus on consistent improvement, one lesson at a time, one adjustment at a time, one step forward at a time. And slowly, almost invisibly, those steps begin to accumulate. Small improvements compound, knowledge compounds, experience compounds, until one day people look at your success and call it overnight success. But you know the truth. It was never overnight. It was built through persistence, through resilience, through learning from every failure along the way. And once you truly understand this process, something inside you changes. Failure stops being something to fear. It becomes something to study. Because every failure carries information, every challenge contains a lesson, and every lesson moves you one step closer to mastery. But resilience alone is not enough. To build something truly meaningful, you must also master another critical skill: the ability to make difficult decisions under pressure. And that is exactly what we will explore next.
There comes a stage in every ambitious journey when the difficulty is no longer just about effort, it becomes about decisions. Hard decisions. The kind of decisions that carry consequences. The kind of decisions that shape the direction of everything you are building. Most people like the idea of success. They enjoy the motivation. They enjoy the vision. They enjoy imagining the rewards. But very few people enjoy the responsibility of decision-making. Because real decisions often involve uncertainty. You do not always know what the outcome will be. You do not always have perfect information. And sometimes every available option feels uncomfortable. This is where leadership truly begins. Not when everything is going well, but when the path forward becomes unclear. Imagine you are responsible for a growing company. Your team is expanding. Your customers expect results. Your investors expect progress. And suddenly, the market changes. Competition increases. Costs rise. Revenue becomes unpredictable. Now the pressure begins to grow. Should you change your strategy? Should you invest more aggressively? Should you reduce spending? Should you pivot the entire direction of the company? These decisions cannot always wait. Time itself becomes part of the pressure. The longer you hesitate, the more opportunities disappear. But rushing without thinking can also create serious problems. So how do great leaders navigate these moments? They develop a powerful ability that most people never train. They learn how to think clearly under pressure. When pressure increases, the human brain often reacts emotionally. Fear appears. Stress increases. The mind begins imagining negative outcomes. And emotional thinking can lead to poor decisions. But experienced leaders understand this pattern. Instead of reacting immediately, they pause. They slow down their thinking. They ask better questions. What is actually happening here? What are the real facts? What assumptions might be wrong? What information am I missing? This process transforms panic into analysis, and analysis creates clarity. Clarity does not eliminate risk, but it helps you understand the situation more accurately. Once the situation becomes clearer, decisions become easier. Another important principle of strong decision-making is focusing on what truly matters. Many problems feel complicated because we try to solve too many things at once. But effective leaders simplify complexity. They identify the one or two factors that will create the biggest impact. Instead of spreading energy across dozens of small problems, they concentrate on the most important issue. This focus creates momentum, and momentum changes everything. Momentum is one of the most powerful forces in progress. When things begin moving forward, confidence grows, energy increases, solutions appear more quickly. But momentum can also disappear when decisions are delayed. Imagine a car stuck in deep mud. If the driver hesitates, the wheels spin without progress. But if the driver chooses a clear direction and commits to movement, the car eventually escapes. Progress works the same way. Indecision creates stagnation. Decisive action creates movement. Even imperfect movement is often better than perfect hesitation. This does not mean acting recklessly. It means understanding that progress requires motion. One of the most useful strategies for decision-making is learning to separate reversible decisions from irreversible ones. Not every decision carries the same weight. Some choices can easily be adjusted later. These are reversible decisions. For example, testing a new marketing strategy, launching a small experiment, trying a different approach to solving a problem. If the results are not good, adjustments can be made quickly. These decisions should be made fast. But some decisions are more permanent. Hiring key leadership roles, entering major partnerships, changing the core direction of a company.
These decisions deserve deeper thinking. They require careful analysis. They require patience. Understanding this difference prevents unnecessary stress. Many people treat small decisions like major life events. They overthink simple choices. They delay action while searching for perfect certainty. But perfect certainty rarely exists. At some point, every leader must trust their judgment. This is where experience becomes valuable. Experience builds intuition, not magical intuition, but informed intuition. The ability to recognize patterns from past situations. The ability to sense when something feels right or wrong. Over time, leaders begin noticing signals that others overlook. They recognize early warning signs. They notice subtle changes in behavior, markets, or opportunities. And these observations guide better decisions. But intuition alone is not enough. Strong leaders also seek perspectives. They listen to people with different viewpoints. They encourage honest feedback. Because sometimes the most dangerous mistake is believing you already know everything. Humility protects leaders from that trap. Humility allows learning to continue. It allows ideas to evolve. It allows mistakes to become lessons rather than disasters. One of the most difficult skills to develop is the courage to make unpopular decisions. Not everyone will agree with you. Sometimes your decisions will disappoint people. Sometimes they will create temporary discomfort. But leadership requires prioritizing long-term outcomes over short-term approval. Many leaders fail because they try to keep everyone happy. But trying to satisfy everyone often leads to weak decisions. Strong leaders focus on what is necessary, not what is comfortable. This requires emotional maturity, because criticism can be difficult. Doubt from others can feel discouraging. But those moments test your commitment to the vision. If you truly believe in the direction you are building, you must sometimes move forward, even when others cannot yet see what you see. This does not mean ignoring feedback. Feedback is valuable, but feedback must be evaluated carefully. Some criticism contains useful insight. Other criticism simply reflects fear or misunderstanding. Learning how to distinguish between the two is part of leadership growth. And with every difficult decision you make, something important begins to happen. Your confidence grows. Not because every decision works perfectly, but because you develop trust in your ability to adapt. You realize that even if a decision leads to challenges, you can solve them. This belief becomes a powerful source of mental strength. It removes the paralysis that fear creates. It replaces hesitation with thoughtful action. And over time, these actions accumulate. They shape the direction of your work. They influence the growth of your team. They determine the future of the vision you are building. This is the reality of leadership. It is not a single heroic moment. It is thousands of decisions made over time, some small, some enormous, all connected, each one moving the story forward. And as those decisions accumulate, something remarkable begins to emerge. Patterns, lessons, experience. These experiences gradually transform you. The person who once feared uncertainty begins to navigate it confidently. The person who once doubted their abilities begins trusting their judgment. And slowly, quietly, leadership becomes part of who you are. But even with strong decision-making skills, there is another challenge that every leader eventually faces. A challenge that tests emotional strength more than strategy. The challenge of managing people. Because building something meaningful is never a solo journey. It requires collaboration, trust, and the ability to bring different personalities together towards one shared goal. And that's where the next lesson begins.
At some point in every meaningful journey, you begin to realize something surprising. Building something great is rarely about ideas alone. It is about people. No matter how strong your vision is, no matter how powerful your strategy seems, nothing meaningful can grow without the right people around you. A single individual can start a movement, but it takes a team to sustain it. This is one of the most important transitions every leader must learn to make, the shift from individual effort to collective effort. At the beginning of a project or a business, most founders try to do everything themselves. They write the plans, they solve the problems, they handle the responsibilities. They work long hours believing that personal effort alone will carry the mission forward. And in the early stages, that approach can work. But eventually, something changes. The complexity increases, the demands grow larger, the number of decisions multiplies, and suddenly one person is no longer enough. This is the moment when leaders must learn the art of building teams. But building a team is not simply about hiring people. It is about creating an environment where people can perform at their best. And that requires understanding something fundamental about human behavior. People are not machines. They are not simply resources that perform tasks. They are individuals with motivations, fears, ambitions, and emotions. If a leader ignores this reality, the team will never reach its full potential. But when a leader learns how to align people around a shared mission, something powerful begins to happen. Energy multiplies, ideas expand, problems are solved faster, momentum grows. This is the hidden power of strong teams. They transform individual effort into collective strength. But creating that kind of team requires careful attention. One of the first lessons leaders must learn is that hiring the right people matters more than hiring quickly. When pressure increases and work begins to pile up, it is tempting to bring in anyone who seems capable. But rushing the hiring process can create long-term problems, because the wrong person in the wrong role can disrupt the entire environment. They may lack the skills required, or perhaps their mindset conflicts with the culture you are trying to build. Over time, these mismatches create friction, and friction slows down progress. Great leaders understand that hiring is not just about talent, it is about alignment. Does this person believe in the mission? Do they approach problems with curiosity and responsibility? Are they willing to learn and adapt? Do they elevate the people around them? When these qualities exist, something special happens. The team becomes more than a group of workers. It becomes a group of collaborators, and collaboration creates innovation. Another important truth about building strong teams is that clarity matters more than control. Some leaders believe that authority means controlling every detail. They try to supervise every task. They monitor every decision. But this approach quickly creates frustration, because talented people want to contribute, not simply follow instructions. When leaders focus on control, creativity disappears. People become cautious. They stop sharing ideas. They focus only on avoiding mistakes. But when leaders provide clarity instead of control, the environment changes. Clarity means everyone understands the mission. Everyone understands the priorities. Everyone understands the goals. Once that clarity exists, people can operate independently. They can make decisions. They can explore solutions. They can innovate. This freedom creates ownership, and ownership transforms the way people approach their work. Instead of simply completing tasks, they begin taking responsibility for outcomes. They care about results. They care about improvement. They care about the success of the mission itself. And when people care deeply about what they are building, extraordinary things become possible. But even the strongest teams face challenges. Disagreements happen, mistakes occur, stress appears during difficult moments. These situations test the culture of the team. If trust is weak, conflict can damage relationships. But if trust is strong, conflict can actually improve results, because healthy disagreement often leads to better ideas. Different perspectives reveal blind spots. Debate sharpens thinking. The key is learning how to disagree productively. Great teams argue about ideas, not about personal ego.
They focus on solving the problem rather than proving someone wrong. And this mindset keeps conversations constructive rather than destructive. Trust plays a central role in making this possible. Trust grows when leaders demonstrate consistency, when words match actions, when promises are kept, when fairness guides decisions. People observe leadership behavior carefully. If leaders behave with integrity, trust grows naturally. But if leaders say one thing and do another, trust disappears quickly. Once trust disappears, rebuilding it becomes extremely difficult. This is why self-awareness is such an important leadership skill. Leaders must constantly observe their own behavior. Are they communicating clearly? Are they listening carefully? Are they treating people with respect? These small details shape the culture of the entire organization. Culture is often invisible, but its impact is enormous. Culture determines how people behave when no one is watching. It determines how problems are approached. It determines how people treat one another during stressful moments. When culture encourages learning, curiosity grows. When culture encourages responsibility, accountability grows. When culture encourages collaboration, creativity grows. But when culture tolerates blame, fear, or confusion, performance declines. This is why leaders must actively shape the environment they create. Every decision sends a signal. Every reaction teaches people what is acceptable and what is not. Over time, those signals accumulate and define the culture. But perhaps the most important responsibility a leader has toward their team is belief. People perform differently when someone truly believes in their potential. When leaders see strengths that individuals may not yet see in themselves, confidence grows, and confidence unlocks ability. A person who doubts themselves may hesitate, they may hold back ideas, they may avoid taking initiative. But when someone encourages them, supports them, and gives them opportunities to grow, something powerful happens. Their potential begins to emerge. Great leaders do not simply manage people, they develop people. They create environments where individuals can grow beyond their current limitations. And when individuals grow, the entire organization grows with them. This is one of the most fulfilling aspects of leadership, watching people evolve, watching them gain confidence, watching them achieve things they once believed were impossible. Because in the end, success is rarely the result of one person's brilliance. It is the result of many individuals working together with purpose, aligned around a shared vision, supporting one another during challenges, celebrating progress together, and moving forward together. This collective journey creates something much larger than any single person could achieve alone. But even the strongest teams face moments when the pressure becomes intense. Markets shift, unexpected crises appear, plans fall apart, and during those moments, leadership is tested in a completely different way. Because when chaos arrives, people look toward their leaders for stability. They look for calm, they look for direction. And how a leader responds during crisis often determines whether the organization survives or collapses. That's where the next lesson begins. The lesson of navigating uncertainty when everything around you seems unpredictable.
Sooner or later, every ambitious journey collides with uncertainty. Not the small kind of uncertainty that comes with normal decisions, but the deeper kind, the kind that shakes confidence, disrupts plans, and forces leaders to confront realities they never expected. This is the moment where theory ends and leadership becomes real. Because when everything is going smoothly, almost anyone can appear confident. But when things begin to fall apart, when pressure builds, when outcomes become unpredictable, that is when true leadership is revealed. Uncertainty is uncomfortable because the human mind naturally seeks control. We want predictable results. We want clear answers. We want stability. But the world rarely offers those guarantees. Markets change, technology evolves, competitors appear, economic conditions shift. Even the strongest plans can suddenly become fragile. And when that happens, many people react in one of two ways. Some freeze.
They hesitate, hoping the problem will somehow disappear on its own. Others panic. They make rash decisions driven by fear rather than logic. Neither response creates good outcomes. What strong leaders learn over time is something very important. Uncertainty is not an enemy. It is a permanent feature of progress. Every new opportunity carries unknown risks. Every major breakthrough once looked uncertain. Every great company, invention, or movement passed through moments where success was far from guaranteed. The difference between those who succeed and those who stop is not the absence of uncertainty, it is their relationship with it. Instead of fearing uncertainty, experienced leaders learn how to navigate it. They develop the ability to stay calm when information is incomplete. They focus on what can be controlled instead of obsessing over what cannot. This shift in mindset creates clarity during chaos. When others panic, disciplined leaders slow down their thinking. They analyze the situation. They break the problem into smaller parts. They identify what is actually happening instead of imagining worst-case scenarios. This ability to remain mentally stable during uncertainty becomes a powerful competitive advantage, because while others hesitate, leaders who maintain clarity continue moving forward. They test ideas, they explore solutions, they gather information, and slowly, step by step, they begin shaping a new path. One of the most powerful tools during uncertain times is adaptability. Rigid thinking creates fragility. If a plan cannot evolve, it eventually collapses when reality changes. But flexible thinking creates resilience. Adaptable leaders understand that strategy is not a fixed document, it is a living process. When conditions change, strategies must change as well. This does not mean abandoning your vision. Vision remains the guiding star, but the path toward that vision may require adjustment. Imagine navigating through a dense forest. Your destination remains the same, but the exact path may shift depending on obstacles, terrain, or unexpected barriers. Leaders who understand this principle avoid one of the most dangerous traps in business and life: attachment to outdated plans. Sometimes the plan that once worked becomes the very thing preventing progress, and recognizing when to adjust direction requires humility. It requires the willingness to admit that something is no longer working. Many leaders struggle with this. They become emotionally attached to their original ideas. They fear that changing direction may look like failure. But the truth is exactly the opposite. Refusing to adapt often leads to failure. Adapting intelligently is a sign of strength. It shows that the mission matters more than personal pride. Another important element of navigating uncertainty is communication. During stable times, communication may feel routine, but during difficult periods, communication becomes essential. People naturally become anxious when the future feels unclear. Teams begin asking questions. Investors look for reassurance. Customers wonder whether the company will remain reliable. Silence during these moments creates fear, but clear communication creates stability. Strong leaders do not pretend to have all the answers. Instead, they communicate honestly. They explain what is known. They acknowledge what is still uncertain, and they share the steps being taken to move forward. This transparency builds trust. It shows confidence without arrogance. And when people trust leadership, they are more willing to stay committed during challenging periods. Another powerful habit during uncertain times is focusing on progress rather than perfection. When conditions are unstable, waiting for perfect plans can cause dangerous delays. Instead, successful leaders move forward with informed experiments. Small tests, small improvements, small adjustments. Each step generates new information, and that information helps refine the next decision. This approach transforms uncertainty into learning. Instead of fearing unknown outcomes, leaders treat uncertainty as a source of data. Every attempt reveals something valuable. Every mistake provides insight. Over time, these insights create a clearer understanding of the environment. This process builds momentum even during chaos. But there is another challenge that uncertainty brings. It tests emotional endurance. Long periods of pressure can exhaust even the strongest individuals. Doubt begins to whisper in the background. Questions appear. Is this worth it? Am I capable of handling this? Should I just walk away? These thoughts are normal. Every ambitious leader encounters them. But the difference between those who persist and those who quit lies in perspective. Short-term struggles often disguise long-term breakthroughs. Many successful companies survived periods where failure seemed likely. Many influential leaders experienced moments where everything appeared uncertain, but they continued moving forward, not blindly, not recklessly, but with determination, guided by learning and adaptation. This resilience becomes a powerful internal asset, the ability to endure difficulty while maintaining direction. And when the storm finally begins to pass, something remarkable becomes visible. The organization is stronger, the team is wiser, the leader is more experienced. The challenges that once felt overwhelming become valuable lessons. Uncertainty, when navigated correctly, becomes a teacher. It reveals weaknesses that need improvement. It exposes assumptions that require correction. It strengthens the mental discipline required for long-term success. But perhaps the most important transformation happens within the leader themselves. Their relationship with fear begins to change. Situations that once seemed terrifying now feel manageable, because experience has proven something important. Problems can be solved. Paths can be rebuilt, progress can continue. And once that realization takes root, a new level of confidence begins to grow. Not the loud, fragile confidence based on optimism alone, but the quiet confidence that comes from resilience. The confidence that says, no matter what challenge appears, I will find a way forward. And that mindset opens the door to one of the most powerful skills a leader can develop. The ability to turn adversity into advantage. Because sometimes the hardest moments contain the seeds of the greatest opportunities, but only those who learn to see beyond the difficulty will ever discover them. And that discovery leads directly into the next stage of the journey, the stage where obstacles stop looking like barriers and start becoming fuel for growth.
There is a moment in every long journey toward success when something inside a person begins to change. At the beginning, most people chase success because they want results. They want money. They want recognition. They want freedom. They want proof that their effort matters. But as the journey continues, something deeper begins to happen. The struggle itself begins to reshape the individual. What once felt impossible becomes familiar. What once created fear becomes manageable. And slowly, the person who started the journey is no longer the same person who continues it. This transformation is one of the hidden rewards of persistence. Because success is rarely just about the external outcomes. It is about the internal evolution that happens along the way. Every difficult challenge builds mental endurance. Every setback develops emotional control. Every obstacle forces creativity. And over time, these experiences forge a new kind of strength, a strength that cannot be learned from books alone. It must be lived. Consider the early stages of any ambitious goal. The uncertainty feels overwhelming. Every problem appears large. Every delay feels frustrating. Every rejection feels personal. But if someone continues moving forward long enough, their perspective begins to shift. They start recognizing patterns. They understand that setbacks are not permanent. They learn that progress often happens in cycles. Periods of growth followed by periods of difficulty. Moments of excitement followed by moments of doubt. This rhythm is natural, but most people quit before they understand it. They expect the journey to be smooth. They expect momentum to continue without interruption. And when reality proves otherwise, discouragement begins to take over. But experienced builders know something different. They know that the path to meaningful success is rarely linear. It moves forward, backward, sideways, and sometimes feels completely lost. Yet through all of that movement, progress is still being made, even when it is invisible, even when it feels slow. Because growth is often happening beneath the surface. Skills are improving, understanding is expanding, resilience is strengthening. And eventually, those invisible improvements begin to produce visible results. This is why patience becomes such an important skill. Patience is not passive waiting. It is active persistence. It is the discipline to continue working even when the rewards have not yet appeared. Many great achievements required years of effort before success became visible. Great companies were once fragile startups. Influential leaders were once inexperienced beginners. Groundbreaking ideas were once dismissed as unrealistic. But persistence transformed those early struggles into powerful outcomes. Another lesson that becomes clear during this stage of the journey is the importance of perspective. When people focus only on immediate results, they often underestimate their progress. They compare their current situation to an imagined future, and that comparison can create frustration. But when they look backward instead, something different appears. They see how far they have come. They see the problems they have already solved. They see the abilities they have developed. And this reflection provides motivation to continue, because it proves something important. Progress is happening. It may not always be dramatic, it may not always be fast, but it is real. One of the most powerful mental habits during long-term growth is learning how to detach identity from temporary outcomes. Failure in a project does not mean failure as a person. A rejected idea does not mean a lack of intelligence. A delayed opportunity does not mean a permanent limitation. When people attach their identity to every outcome, they become emotionally fragile. Each setback feels like a personal defeat. Each challenge feels like a threat to their self-worth. But resilient individuals view outcomes differently. They see them as feedback, information, signals that guide improvement. This mindset removes the fear of experimentation. When mistakes become lessons rather than judgments, people become more willing to try new approaches. Innovation becomes possible. Creativity becomes natural. Growth accelerates. But perhaps the most powerful realization during long journeys is understanding that success is not simply about reaching a destination. It is about who you become along the way. Many people imagine that success will solve all their problems. They believe that once they reach a certain level of achievement, life will suddenly become easy. But those who have actually reached great heights often describe something different. They explain that success introduces new responsibilities, new challenges, new expectations. The problems change, but they never disappear completely. And this is why internal development matters so much. Because external success without internal strength often leads to instability. Money without discipline can disappear. Influence without integrity can collapse. Opportunity without preparation can create stress instead of fulfillment. But when internal strength grows alongside external success, stability emerges. Confidence becomes grounded. Decisions become wiser. Leadership becomes more authentic. This alignment between internal growth and external achievement creates something powerful. Sustainable success. Success that lasts. Success that continues evolving instead of fading. And this brings us to another important insight. The people who achieve long-term success rarely stop learning. Curiosity becomes part of their identity.
They remain students of their craft, students of human behavior, students of the world around them. They read, they observe, they ask questions, they experiment, because they understand that stagnation is the enemy of progress. The moment someone believes they already know everything is the moment growth stops. But those who stay curious remain adaptable. They remain innovative. They remain capable of discovering new opportunities even in familiar environments. This lifelong learning mindset keeps the journey alive. It prevents success from turning into complacency. It turns achievement into a platform for continued exploration. And as this mindset develops, something remarkable happens. The focus gradually shifts from personal success to something larger. The desire to create value for others, to build systems that help people grow, to share knowledge, to mentor, to contribute. Because eventually, many successful individuals realize that the most meaningful impact comes from what they build beyond themselves. The organizations they create, the people they develop, the ideas they spread, the opportunities they unlock for others. This broader perspective transforms success from a personal pursuit into a meaningful mission, and missions create legacy. But the journey towards legacy introduces one final challenge, a challenge that many people do not anticipate. The challenge of maintaining discipline after success begins to appear. Because strangely enough, success itself can become a new obstacle. Comfort can replace hunger. Confidence can turn into arrogance. Momentum can slow when people begin believing they have already arrived. And avoiding this trap requires a level of self-awareness that few people develop. That's why the next stage of this journey focuses on one of the most underestimated forces in long-term achievement: the discipline required to stay focused even after success begins to appear. Because building something great is one challenge, but sustaining greatness, that is an entirely different test.
When success finally begins to appear, something unexpected often happens. The struggle that once fueled relentless effort slowly begins to fade. In the early stages, survival creates urgency. Every opportunity feels important. Every customer matters. Every improvement feels critical. The pressure forces focus. But when progress becomes visible, when revenue grows, recognition increases, and stability begins to form, the psychological environment changes. Comfort quietly enters the picture. And comfort, while pleasant, can become dangerous if it is not managed carefully. Because the same hunger that once drove innovation can slowly disappear. The same discipline that once guided daily effort can begin to weaken. The same curiosity that once pushed leaders to learn constantly can be replaced by the illusion that they have already figured everything out. This is one of the most subtle challenges in long-term success. Success itself can become the very thing that slows progress. History is full of organizations and individuals who rose quickly but then stagnated. Not because they lacked ability, not because opportunity disappeared, but because their mindset changed. They stopped thinking like builders and started thinking like owners of something already finished. And that shift in thinking changes behavior. Instead of asking, how can we improve, people begin asking, how can we protect what we have? Protection replaces exploration. Stability replaces innovation. And slowly, momentum fades. But the leaders who sustain long-term success understand something deeply important. Nothing is ever truly finished. Every industry evolves, every market changes, every advantage eventually attracts competition. This is why great leaders maintain what can only be described as beginner's hunger. Even after achieving results, they continue asking the same questions they asked in the early days. What can be improved? What assumptions might be outdated? What new opportunities are emerging? What problems are we ignoring?
This mindset prevents complacency. It keeps curiosity alive, and curiosity keeps progress moving forward. Another powerful habit among those who sustain success is maintaining discipline in daily routines. During difficult early stages, discipline is often forced by necessity. There is too much to do and too little time. But once success arrives, external pressure decreases, and that is where internal discipline becomes essential. The most effective leaders protect their time carefully. They remain intentional about how they spend their energy. They continue learning. They continue refining their thinking. They continue strengthening their organizations, because they understand that momentum must be maintained. Momentum is like physical fitness. If someone trains intensely for years, but then stops completely, the strength they built slowly disappears. The same principle applies to success. Effort must continue if growth is expected to continue. But discipline alone is not enough. Another essential ingredient in sustained success is humility. Humility allows leaders to recognize that success is rarely achieved alone. Teams contribute, mentors contribute, timing contributes, market conditions contribute. When leaders remember these factors, they remain grounded. But when leaders begin believing that success exists only because of their own brilliance, something dangerous happens. Arrogance begins to grow, and arrogance blinds people to reality. It makes them dismiss feedback. It makes them ignore warnings. It makes them underestimate competitors. Many once great companies collapsed because their leaders stopped listening. They believed their previous success guaranteed future success. But the world does not work that way. Success must be earned repeatedly, every year, every project, every decision. And humility protects that understanding. It keeps leaders open to learning. It keeps organizations flexible. It keeps improvement continuous. Another key element in maintaining long-term success is investing in people. Organizations that grow sustainably rarely depend on a single individual. Instead, they build strong teams with capable leaders at multiple levels. This distributed leadership creates resilience. When one person faces difficulty, others can step forward. When new challenges appear, multiple perspectives contribute solutions. But developing strong people requires patience and trust. Leaders must be willing to give responsibility. They must allow others to make decisions. They must create opportunities for growth. Some leaders hesitate to do this. They fear losing control. But ironically, trying to control everything often limits the organization's potential. When people feel trusted, they perform differently. They become more creative, more proactive, more invested in the outcome. And this shared ownership strengthens the entire system. Another powerful practice among those who sustain success is continuous reflection. Reflection creates awareness. It allows leaders to pause and evaluate what is actually happening. What is working well? What needs improvement? Where are we drifting away from our original mission? Without reflection, organizations often move quickly but blindly. They stay busy but lose clarity. But regular reflection keeps the mission aligned with reality. It ensures that growth remains intentional rather than accidental. And intentional growth is far more stable than random expansion. Over time, these habits, discipline, humility, curiosity, strong teams, and reflection, create something remarkable. They create durability. Durability is what separates temporary success from lasting influence. Anyone can experience a short burst of achievement, but maintaining progress for years or decades requires something deeper. It requires character. Character is what keeps leaders grounded when success appears. Character is what guides decisions when temptation arises. Character is what protects organizations from drifting away from their values. And values become especially important as influence grows, because the larger an organization becomes, the more impact its decisions have on the world around it. Employees depend on it, customers rely on it, communities interact with it. This responsibility requires thoughtful leadership. Leaders must think beyond short-term gains. They must consider long-term consequences. They must build systems that create value rather than simply extracting it. This perspective transforms success from a personal achievement into a meaningful contribution, and that contribution becomes the true measure of leadership. But there is one final dimension that many people overlook when pursuing success, an element that determines whether achievement actually leads to fulfillment. Because building wealth, influence, or accomplishment does not automatically create satisfaction. Many people reach impressive milestones only to discover that something still feels incomplete. This final lesson addresses that deeper question, not just how to achieve success, but how to build a life where success and meaning exist together. And that's where the final stage of this journey begins.
After years of struggle, learning, failure, adjustment, and progress, many people eventually arrive at a moment they once dreamed about. They reach a level of success that once felt distant. The business becomes stable. The income becomes reliable. The reputation begins to grow. Opportunities start appearing more frequently. From the outside, everything looks like victory. But something interesting often happens at this stage. The question changes. In the beginning, the question was always the same. How do I succeed? How do I build something meaningful? How do I escape limitation? But once success begins to appear, a new question slowly emerges. What does all of this really mean? Because success alone does not automatically create fulfillment. It creates possibilities. It creates freedom. But fulfillment requires something deeper. Many highly successful individuals eventually discover this truth. They reach the goals they once pursued with relentless determination, only to realize that achievement by itself does not answer the deeper questions of life. It does not automatically bring peace. It does not automatically bring purpose, and it does not automatically bring satisfaction. This realization can feel surprising at first. After all, society often teaches us that success is the ultimate destination, that once we reach it, happiness will naturally follow. But reality is more complex. Success amplifies who we already are. If someone builds success without developing inner clarity, the external results may still feel empty. But when success grows alongside purpose, something very different happens. Achievement begins to feel meaningful. Progress becomes fulfilling. Contribution becomes rewarding. This is why many leaders eventually shift their focus from purely personal success towards something larger. They begin asking different questions. Instead of asking, "What can I gain?" they begin asking, "What can I create?" Instead of asking, "How can I win?" they ask, "How can I help others succeed?" Instead of focusing only on accumulation, they begin focusing on impact. And impact changes the entire experience of success, because impact connects achievement with purpose. It turns success into service. It transforms personal victories into shared progress. Many of the most respected leaders in history eventually reached this stage. They realized that their greatest legacy would not be the wealth they accumulated or the recognition they received. Their true legacy would be the systems they built, the people they developed, and the ideas they contributed to the world. This shift in perspective often leads to a deeper kind of motivation. Early motivation is often driven by necessity. People work hard because they want to escape financial pressure or prove their potential. But later motivation becomes driven by responsibility. Leaders recognize that their actions influence many others. Employees depend on their decisions. Customers trust their products or services. Communities are affected by the organizations they build. This awareness creates a new level of discipline.
Because leadership is no longer just about personal ambition, it becomes about stewardship. Stewardship means taking care of something larger than yourself. It means protecting the values that allowed success to grow in the first place. It means ensuring that growth remains ethical, responsible, and sustainable. This perspective transforms how leaders approach their work. Short-term gains become less attractive if they damage long-term trust. Quick profits become less appealing if they compromise integrity. Because leaders begin to understand something fundamental. Trust is one of the most valuable assets any organization can possess. And once trust is lost, rebuilding it is extremely difficult. Trust takes years to build, but can disappear in a single moment. This is why strong leaders constantly return to their core principles. What do we stand for? What values guide our decisions? What kind of impact do we want to create? These questions act like a compass. They keep the organization moving in the right direction even as it grows larger and more complex. But purpose and responsibility also create something else that many people underestimate. They create resilience. When challenges appear, and they always do, leaders who are driven only by personal gain may feel tempted to give up. But leaders driven by purpose often persist through incredible difficulty because their mission extends beyond themselves. They know that others depend on their perseverance. They know that their work matters to more than just their own ambitions, and that knowledge creates strength. It provides motivation during difficult moments. It keeps effort alive when obstacles appear overwhelming. Another important transformation that occurs at this stage is the understanding that time becomes the most valuable resource. In the early stages of building something, people often focus heavily on money. But as success grows, a different realization appears. Time is far more limited. Money can be earned again. Opportunities can reappear, but time, once spent, never returns. This awareness causes many successful individuals to rethink their priorities. They become more selective about how they invest their attention. They protect their time carefully. They focus on activities that truly matter. And often, they begin investing more energy into relationships, family, mentorship, community. Because at the end of long careers, people rarely remember only the financial milestones. They remember the people they worked with, the lives they influenced, the relationships they built along the way. These human connections give success its deeper meaning. They transform achievement into something lasting. And perhaps the most powerful realization of all begins to emerge during this stage. The journey itself was never just about reaching a destination. It was about growth. It was about learning. It was about becoming the kind of person capable of building something meaningful. Every failure played a role. Every setback taught a lesson. Every challenge strengthened resilience. Without those experiences, success would not have been possible. And recognizing this truth creates gratitude. Gratitude for the struggle. Gratitude for the lessons, gratitude for the opportunity to build something that once seemed impossible. This perspective brings a sense of peace that many people spend years searching for, because success without peace can feel exhausting. But success combined with clarity and purpose creates fulfillment. And fulfillment is ultimately what most people were seeking all along, even if they did not realize it at the beginning of the journey. But there is still one final idea that completes this entire exploration, one last principle that ties together everything we've discussed, the principle that explains why some individuals build lasting influence while others fade away after short periods of success. It is not intelligence, it is not luck, and it is not even opportunity alone. It is something far more fundamental, something that shapes every decision, every action, and every outcome over time. And that final principle is the foundation of everything that truly lasts. Character. And understanding the power of character brings us to the final stage of this journey.
At the end of every long journey of growth, struggle, success, and discovery, one truth slowly becomes clear. Success is never built on talent alone. It is not built on intelligence alone. It is not even built on opportunity alone. The strongest foundation beneath every lasting achievement is something far more fundamental: character. Character is the invisible force that shapes every decision when no one is watching. It is the internal compass that guides actions when pressure appears. It is the quiet discipline that keeps a person moving forward when motivation fades. Throughout history, the individuals who built lasting impact were rarely perfect. They made mistakes. They faced failures. They experienced moments of doubt. But what separated them from others was not perfection. It was their commitment to growth, their willingness to learn, their determination to keep moving forward with integrity even when circumstances became difficult. Character reveals itself most clearly during difficult moments. When things are easy, values are rarely tested. But when pressure increases, when the stakes become high, when decisions carry serious consequences, character becomes visible. In those moments, leaders must decide what truly matters. Do they choose shortcuts that promise quick rewards, or do they stay aligned with their principles even when the path becomes harder? History consistently shows that shortcuts often create temporary success but long-term damage. Integrity, on the other hand, builds trust that can last for decades. Trust is one of the most powerful currencies in the world. It cannot be purchased, it cannot be forced, it must be earned slowly through consistent behavior. When people trust a leader, they follow willingly. When customers trust a company, loyalty grows naturally. When teams trust each other, collaboration becomes powerful. And trust always grows from character. But character is not something people are simply born with. It is developed through choices, small choices repeated over time. Choosing honesty even when it is inconvenient. Choosing discipline even when no one is enforcing it. Choosing responsibility instead of blame. Choosing patience instead of frustration. These choices may seem small in isolation, but over years they shape identity, they shape reputation, they shape the kind of person someone becomes. And that identity becomes the true foundation of success. Because skills can be learned, strategies can change, markets can evolve, but character determines how a person responds to every situation. It determines whether success becomes sustainable or temporary. Another powerful dimension of character is resilience. Life never follows a perfectly smooth path. Even the most successful individuals encounter unexpected challenges, economic downturns, personal losses, unexpected failures, moments where progress seems to disappear overnight. In those moments, character becomes the source of endurance. It reminds individuals why they started. It strengthens their ability to stand back up when they fall. It fuels persistence when results temporarily disappear. Resilience is not the absence of difficulty. It is the ability to move through difficulty without losing direction. And every time someone rises after a setback, their resilience grows stronger. But there is another quality within strong character that often goes unnoticed: humility. Humility keeps success grounded. It reminds leaders that learning never ends. It keeps curiosity alive. It allows individuals to listen, to adapt, and to improve. Without humility, success can easily transform into arrogance, and arrogance often leads to blindness. Blindness to new opportunities, blindness to emerging risks, blindness to the contributions of others. But humility keeps awareness sharp. It reminds people that every success was built through the help of many individuals: mentors who shared knowledge, teammates who contributed effort, customers who trusted the product, friends and family who provided support during difficult times. Recognizing these contributions builds gratitude, and gratitude creates a powerful sense of perspective. Because success is rarely the result of one person alone. It is a network of effort, support, and opportunity woven together over time. This perspective naturally leads to another powerful realization. The true measure of success is not only what you achieve, it is what you leave behind. Some people build wealth but leave little impact. Others build ideas, systems, and organizations that continue creating value long after they are gone. Their influence multiplies through the people they helped develop, through the lessons they shared, through the opportunities they created for others. This is what transforms success into legacy. Legacy is not about recognition, it is about contribution. It is about building something that continues improving lives even after your direct involvement ends. And the foundation of legacy is always character. Because people may remember strategies for a while, they may remember achievements for a period of time, but they remember character forever. They remember how someone treated others. They remember how someone behaved during difficult moments. They remember the integrity behind the success. This is why the journey of success ultimately becomes a journey of self-development. The external results are important, but the internal transformation is even more valuable. Because when someone develops discipline, resilience, humility, curiosity, and integrity, those qualities extend far beyond business or achievement. They shape relationships, they influence communities, they inspire others to pursue their own growth. And that influence creates a ripple effect. One person's growth encourages another person's growth. One act of leadership inspires another act of leadership. One example of resilience shows others what is possible. Over time, these ripples spread far beyond what anyone can measure. And that is the hidden beauty of personal development. When one individual grows stronger, wiser, and more intentional, the impact extends far beyond their own life. It touches families, organizations, communities, and sometimes even entire generations. So as this journey reaches its conclusion, the most important message becomes clear. Success is not a single moment. It is not a single achievement. It is a continuous process of growth, a lifelong commitment to learning, building, improving, and contributing. And every person listening to these ideas has the ability to begin that journey at any moment. Not tomorrow, not someday, but today. Because progress does not require perfection. It only requires the decision to begin. One step, one improvement, one disciplined action at a time. Those small actions repeated consistently slowly build momentum. Momentum builds confidence. Confidence fuels greater action. And over time, that simple process transforms ordinary effort into extraordinary outcomes. So the question is no longer whether success is possible. The real question is whether you are willing to continue growing long enough to discover what you are truly capable of becoming. Because the journey toward success is ultimately the journey toward becoming your strongest self. And that journey is always worth taking.